United Athletics Flight 069, taking you from the rolling green-covered hills of Richmond, Kentucky, to the craggier climbs of Cedar City, Utah, and all the football you can handle in between. We're going around the UAC. Please enjoy today's in-flight entertainment, the Rev himself, Dustin Hilton.
You know, the more and more I watch this intro, the more and more I'm like, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, the Rev, and I'm not by myself today. I've got a very special guest here on Around the UAC, the man with the sweetest dulcet tones in all of FCS, Zach McKinnell from the Bluebloods. Zach, my man, how are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing good. I appreciate you having me, man. I'm always down in the chat trying to distract you, get you off your point, man. So I appreciate you having me up tonight, man.
No, man, I appreciate you coming on because I know you're an absolute look this and already got comments already coming in for you, man. Chad says, "What's up?" There's Ariel. I love that intro. I'm glad you love it, Ariel, because I look at it every time and I don't know. I mean, shout out to Keith Brake. I do give it everybody. Keith Brake did the audio on that. That was great audio. I just hate that I decimated it with bad visuals. But all right. So listen, we're going to talk the UAC. We're going to talk the past week's games. There's some really good ones, some kind of surprising ones, and then we'll talk the upcoming week. I'm sure there will be conversation about poll because that is the discussion right now in the FCS. And when I mean poll, I don't mean what's on Chad's internet browsing history. I mean the FCS polls. So let's go to the games from last week. Zach, I guess first before I go through that, I guess I should do the admin part. So big shout out to our sponsors, the Versus Simulator, and also the Walk On Apparel. I actually just got a new Idaho shirt from Walk On Apparel. I jinxed them into losing the cow by ordering it during the game and tweeting that the reason why they were winning was because of me. But Walk On Apparel, if you use code FCS Fans Nation, you get 15% off your order. They're coming out with more stuff. So, go there, and it's great quality clothes. I actually like every single piece of gear I have from them. Okay, enough admin stuff. Let's go through the game. So Utah Tech, they went to Springfield, lost Missouri State 59-14. SEMO and Eastern Kentucky had an interesting ass game. We'll come back to this and talk about it. Some Eastern Kentucky pulled off the win against SEMO, 41-38. Abilene Christian went to the Stripes in Conway and got absolutely obliterated by a really good UCA team. And if you don't have UCA in your top 25, I can't figure out why, but we can talk about that too. UT Martin went to Florence, beat North Alabama 37-21. UT Martin's actually looking really good this year as well. The game that infuriated me, Austin P beat SFA 22-20. Talk about that one too, I'm sure. Tarleton State played Southwest Baptist, which I'm not sure where they are. I think they're in Arkansas, but 27-13. It seemed like Tarleton State, I don't know if they were just playing around with them or playing down to them, but it didn't seem like the Tarleton State team that we've seen. And then shout out to Southern Utah, rocking hat that Coach Fitz sent me. They beat Western Illinois, but everybody beats Western Illinois 37-17 because Western Illinois is just hot garbage. Sorry. Appreciate you because you're 11X, all that, but you're bad. You're going to be better off in the OVC, I think. So let's go through some of the games. Let's start with Eastern Kentucky and SEMO. What an ending, and what the hell kind of dumbass way to lose a game by SEMO.
I mean, look, I kind of feel bad for both these programs because they've had such difficult opening schedules with such crucial games early in the season. And it just feels like with SEMO, you look now in back-to-back weeks. I mean, gosh, there's some ways to lose a game. I mean, an All-American running back getting stripped, setting them up for perfect field position for the game-winning touchdown against Southern Illinois. And then this week, it's just like I kind of wonder where that locker room is right now because they came in preseason top 15, some top 10. And now you're sitting here and you're like, are we going to be? If we don't get the auto bid, are we going to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, and especially when you look at that conference, when you look at like what UT Martin's doing. I mean, Gardner Webb's still around there too. Like, there's actual competition in that conglomeration that they have in the Big South OVC. It's so weird to me. Like SEMO, for what they are with Dale Ryan at quarterback, with Geno Hess, they can't put together a complete game. They are not playing for all 60 minutes. I was making a joke about multiple teams that I couldn't get change for a dollar from them because they don't have 4 quarters. But honestly, like it's such a shock to me to see a team that was so well put together last year just not be there this year. And to lose like that, to call a timeout to help Eastern Kentucky get their field goal unit out on the field, have time to set it and kick a game winning. I don't know what was going through the SEMO sidelines mind on that. It's the oddest way I've ever seen a game end. Like
someone got fired.
Yeah,
like someone absolutely got fired, or there's someone has to be held accountable, because you can't lose a game like that. That was a must win for both of these teams. If you don't call that timeout, I mean, are we like, it's just brutal way to lose. But I'm with you. They can't put together a full game. Either Paxton DeLaurent doesn't play well and Geno Hess looks like the Geno Hess we all know and love, or the rushing attack is anemic and then Paxton DeLaurent throws for 300, 400 yards. And it's like, can we get them both together? Because we have seen it. And when they do put them both together, man, they're one of the best teams in the country. But they just seem to be missing that spark. And I don't think it's necessarily Flournoy being hurt, because, I mean, they're still throwing for 300 yards in a game. And you know, they've had some guys step up at wide receiver. But like the way I like to put it is they're missing the X factor. I don't know what that secret ingredient is, but there's just something missing.
Yeah, like I don't know either, because you would think that with that conference, with, you know, the fact they're playing Big South, you would think they just easily steamroll it. They would be, you would think preseason, you look at them and be like, hey, they're probably close to a seed because they have the schedule to do it, and they just aren't there. It seemed like there's a couple instances of a snatching defeat from the jaws of victory this week in the UAC, because let's touch on Stephen F. Austin and Austin P. Interesting. I think I put this on Twitter or social media. The line on this game was 1.5 points, and Austin P won by 2. So if you're not saying, I was like scripted, but let's go on. SFA's up 20-7. Brian Maurer throws a pick 6. Next drive, moves down the field, throws another pick. SFA blows the lead. They're tied 20-20 because the Austin P kicker missed the extra point. Austin P's driving. They get stopped. SFA gets the ball on the 1. SFA runs first play, the draw up the middle, and running back falls in the end zone. And it's a safety. And that's how the game ends. That's how Austin P wins 22-20. And I've had folks ask me if I think Austin P is any good, and I don't think they're bad. I don't know if they're great. I think they'll be 7-4 this year. Is that good enough to make a playoff? Probably. I don't know. Probably not. I mean, you don't know. SFA, I don't want to say we, but SFA shut down Mike DeLello. Dude, I think had like 81 or 83 yards passing, and 78 of them came on one play.
Yeah, it was bad.
But SFA gave up 200 yards of rushing, and that's the big thing. The couple thoughts that I have on SFA. One, you need to go to Preston Weeks instead of Brian Maurer at this point. Brian Maurer's 4 touchdowns and 7 picks in 4 games. That's not a QB1 you need back there. Something's going on. I don't know what it is, but, Weeks is a senior. I think Maurer's a junior. Split those two out, because when Weeks has come in, he has looked good. He went, when Maurer went out with a little bit of getting looked at for an injury, went 2 for 2, drove him down the field, threw a touchdown, right? Second, the offense, they're running a scheme that was built for Xavier Gibson, and Xavier Gibson is no longer there. They're, third down, we're going to throw a wide receiver screen to a wide receiver who's nowhere near as fast as Xavier Gibson was. You don't have that explosive play anymore. You need to change your playbook. And third, you need to step up and help the defense. The defense for SFA this year is really damn good. I know they gave up 200 yards rushing, but they still are really good. They're keeping SFA in the games. They gave up 48 points against Troy, but that game could have been, like most FBS games, could have been a 17-0 blowout. They got a turnover for a touchdown that game too, like a scoop and score, I think is what it was. Like, the point is that the defense is there. The offense is not. And I think that's going to be the biggest problem with SFA. And I know they don't like hearing criticism, but there's your criticism. You've got to work on your offense. What do you think?
I'm with you. Maurer just doesn't seem like the guy to me. I think when you look at the early games, I think he showed flashes against Troy. That offense looked good against Troy. I mean, you guys put up a lot of points, and then it's almost like slowly regress week to week as more films getting put out on the offense. It's like the defenses are catching up, and they're not making any more progress forward, if that makes sense. And kind of in the same place they were 3 weeks ago. And we both know if you're going to compete at a high level, your team's got to consistently evolve and develop. And I just feel like they failed to do that. And I'm with you. I don't think the defense is bad. Like you said, they give a lot of rushing yards. let's not forget this is a team that went up against an all-conference All-American and Jarvion Howard a few weeks ago and shut down Alcorn's rushing attack. That's their bread and butter. And I think Austin P almost kind of had, I mean, if they didn't run the ball, this game is a blowout because Mike DeLelio played probably his worst game I've ever seen him play at Austin P. That was an atrocious performance. But I think Stephen F. Austin has some potential at wide receiver. Now, is it the right scheme for them? Probably not. But I do like Kylan Harris. I think he's shown flashes as an explosive option. But I'm with you. I don't think he has the pure athleticism that Xavier Gibson had, which that's not like a big criticism because Xavier Gibson is next level.
Yeah.
And I also just wonder, I mean, this is a team last year. Let's take a step back. This is a team that kind of similar to Samford this year, top 10 hype, a lot of returning starters. It's supposed to be the breakout year. They greatly underachieved last year. And let's be honest, they lost some close games. And you're kind of seeing that again this year. This was really one of their first super tight games.
Yeah.
And they failed in the clutch moments again. So now you got to look around and say, okay, what do we have to change about our program where we win those one-score games? Because they were atrocious in that the past 2 years.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, last year they were an Xavier Gibson field goal kick return and then a 50-yard kick away from being 5-6 and under 500. Like, no, I agree. It's weird how they flip-flopped, right? They brought in Mutz from Tulane, and he's doing awesome on the defense. He turned it around. But now I wonder, too, if you look at the OC, look at Storm, like, is this the right guy? Are we running the right scheme for the players we have? And I agree. I like Harris. I think Harris is great. It's just you see a talent. You have a talent like Gibson, and it's, of course you look at it like, can he keep up with that talent? And obviously Gibson is something else, right? So, but I think Harris is good. I just think they need to use him in a more appropriate manner. Stop throwing wide receiver screens on third down. That is my biggest thing. Just I will make a shirt and wear it to the game that says "Stop throwing screens." Because
it works. It works for an OC if it's because like when you see screens and halfback draws on third down, like schematically, the reason it works a lot of times is because teams that don't typically run those plays pull them out in those moments. If you're consistently running screens and consistently running halfback draws, it's not going to surprise anybody on third down, and they're ready for it. They've seen it on film a million times. They're calling it out before the play. To run something like that, your offense has to be set up differently. You have to set that up earlier in the game, and they're not doing that.
No, and it's very disappointing. But they've got an interesting game this week, and we'll get to that because I don't know how to, and we'll talk about. I don't know how to call that game. Central Arkansas. Now, again, I know Central Arkansas is 2-2 with only one FCS win, but they lost to North Dakota State. They ran on North Dakota State. I know they got blown out, but one, they covered the spread, but two, they ran the ball on North Dakota State. Shanderick Powell, I'm going to say it now, he's the best running back in the FCS. I think he is. I know there's folks who say it's Isaiah Davis. I know there's folks who say it's Dylan Laub. It's Shanderick Powell. And, Central Arkansas has now got this sort of, if you remember Greek mythology, the Hydra. They basically have the Hydra now because they've got Powell, and then they've got Darius Hale, and then they still got Will McElvain. And so if you cut off one head, you still got two other heads to deal with. And that's a dangerous combination to have, especially in a conference like this. There is no reason at this point that Central Arkansas shouldn't run roughshod through the rest of this conference. Abilene Christian looked good. They did. Abilene Christian looked good, and Central Arkansas woodshedded them. So I mean, I honestly think we'll get to polls and stuff, but if you're not looking at them in your top 25, you're just looking at record alone and not actual performance. And that's a concern because they should be in your top 25.
I'm with you. They're in mine. I moved them back in this week. I moved them out briefly. I've kind of was at the spot with them like I am at SEMO in Eastern Kentucky. Where do I think SEMO and Eastern Kentucky have the talent to be top 25? Yes, but you gotta put it on the field one game to like give me something to base it on. Central Arkansas did it this weekend. This is an Abilene Christian team that could have beaten Incarnate Word last week. Mm-hmm. I mean, they played them really, really well. And I'm with you. I think there were some people who said that when I put Shanderick Powell back into my All-American preseason, they were like, man, he's not going to be able to replicate that. He was the guy at North Alabama. This kid's special, man. I mean, people don't understand that North Alabama offense was Shanderick Powell and Shanderick Powell.
That's it. Yeah, there was nothing else there.
They have one good all-conference offensive lineman who's still there, but that offensive line wasn't world beaters. I mean, and now you put them behind a really good Central Arkansas offensive line. Man, you seeing the results, and I'm with you. I think McIlvain's kind of the key for this team. I don't know how you feel about that, but if he can continue to just take little steps forward in his game, this team can unlock a whole nother potential. But I don't see anyone in the conference that's going to touch them. I think when you look at defensive talent, David Walker, some of the talent in the secondary, they just have it at all levels. You had the ASUN freshman of the year on the offensive line and Diggins, and you got some returning guys there. I like what Nathan Brown put together. When I was at UAC Media Day this summer, I talked to some players and other coaches just off camera, and a lot of them were like, man, we don't know what we're going to do with Central Arkansas. Like, on paper, that team should run the conference right now. Yeah. And I think you're finally starting to see them come into that, come together. And also, I do like that they played a tough early schedule. Now, 2-2 looks bad right now, but that's going to pay off later in the season because they know what they have. They're not out here playing D2 teams. They're not out here playing Pioneer League teams. They know what they have because in that North Dakota State game, I think they found something in themselves.
Yeah, and I think, you look at it like, yeah, they hung in with Oklahoma State, and then you were like, wow, they hung in with Oklahoma State. Then Oklahoma State got boat raced by South Alabama, right? And so you kind of went, ooh, is Oklahoma State that bad this year? Like, it almost was a detriment to what Central Arkansas did. Yeah, they beat Texas College. That you can't count that. North Dakota State going to play in the Fargo Dome. I wonder what that game also too would have been like in Conway. I'm not saying that North Dakota State's getting some home cooking, but North Dakota State sometimes does get some home cooking. But they're still, yeah, incarnate word. I just think you're going to see them just improve and improve. And of course, folks are going to look who are paying attention and say, wow, they got beat by 18 points by 19 points by North Dakota State. The line was 19.5. Okay. They kept it in they covered the spread. All right. So
I think me and you could agree. North Dakota State this year, this team this year would dominate the team that they put on the field last year. I don't even think North Dakota State. I said this on my show. I think I know it's all funny now saying it's personal because of the prime and all that. I think North Dakota State took what happened last year, losing twice to your rival, once in the national championship. They took that personal, and this season they're on a mission to get back there.
Yeah, I will say this: I'm now an honorary South Dakota State Jackrabbit. You witnessed that, personally. But man, if I'm South Dakota State, there's a lot to prep for with North Dakota State when they play the marker game. There's that team. I was doubting Cam Miller. I was doubting his ability to throw the ball, and I don't know what he did in the offseason, but damn.
I felt so stupid. The episode before, he went 18 for 19. I was like, maybe they should just bench him. Like, Cole Payton's the key. And then I had to come back on the recap, and I was like, I apologize. I don't know what I'm talking about. Never watched football in my life. I don't know why I said that.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Admitting you're wrong. And that's what I've been able to do. So we got some comments here, right here. UCA is legit not getting the recognition they deserve. Absolutely. They're not there. You have voters who are lazy and just looking at records and box scores and nothing else. But we can get to that later. Chad has asked, has anybody been to Addison, Texas? Yes, I have. You're not missing anything. I have been there. I don't know why you need to know about it. It's just south of Frisco. You probably have been to a bar there and you don't realize it, honestly. Let's see. They're not playing North American either.
Also a fact.
Let's see. Ron Lowney says North India, she's a different team, and Powell still went for over 200 plus yards. Absolutely. And it wasn't like they ran him 50 times and he got 2 yards a carry, 3 yards. He was busting runs. They were making holes. The problem is that they were so explosive that their defense didn't get the rest that needed. And that was, I think, honestly, a detriment to what they're trying to do, because North Dakota State's going to run it right at you. They're going to beat you to death with that run. And if you don't have a chance to get off the field and recover, you're just going to get owned. That's just what it is. Let's see if there's any other games from last week to talk about. So Southern Utah, I'm proud of them for getting their first win. I think Southern Utah is a year away from being a playoff team.
Agreed.
They're young. They've got a great coach. They've, they're bringing in the talent, and you can see them that they just they're having the SEMO thing. They haven't been able to give a full 4 quarters in a game, and what they look better against Western Illinois, but what you also have to keep in mind, it's Western Illinois. And I'm pretty sure my high school team could beat Western Illinois. We went 0 for the 4 years I was in high school. So I mean, but I think they're on the right path. I just don't think this is their year. But I think next year they're going to be on some people's radars. They're not going to be a preseason top 25. But they're going to be in some folks' top 40.
Could you see them kind of taking the trajectory like we saw with Western Carolina this year?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Western Carolina, look at what Kerwin Bell has done. And everywhere he's at, he makes winners, right? And Delane Fitzgerald is a hell of a coach in that same regard. And everybody, when Western Carolina came out this year, everybody went, "Holy shit, what is going on?" And it's because of Bell. And you saw it towards the end of last year. You could see the talent there. And I think you're going to see it with Fitzgerald. Or you're going to see Fitzgerald. I think you're going to watch Southern Utah. They're going to be in games. I don't see them getting. They might get blown out by UCA, but that game is in Cedar City, right? But they're going to hang in with SFA. They're going to hang in. They're going to hang in with most of the UAC, and they might pull some of those games too. And so I think you're going to see the spark of what's going to happen next year. I just hope people don't dismiss them because they were, with the exception of 1 year, they were a bottom feeder in the Big Sky.
Yeah, I mean, they had that like brief run when Ed Lamb was there.
Yep.
Like briefly. But I think people forget Fitzgerald's only been there like a year. I mean, you got to give the Deuce, like, they are not going to be ready to be a playoff team immediately. Like, this isn't just like an overnight fix. Like Southern Utah, when he got there, was bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they overachieved a lot last year. I mean, I said it in my interview. Go check it out with Coach Fitzgerald. I was like, you guys had a really good year. And he was like, I appreciate you saying that because no one gives us credit. Everyone just acts like we didn't turn this around. Next year could be a big year.
Yep. No, and I mean that's exactly the thing. Like you can't, like Will. Will says, shout out to Will Seiler, who's not on here this week, but don't underestimate SUU. Absolutely, you can't do it. They have a great run defense. It's just been an inability to put in a full game. But also too, the point of the coaches, right? I don't judge a coach until after year 4 because by the time it's year 4, they've had a chance to bring in their players. Right. The first year, second year, see a coach come in, you're like, man, they're doing terrible. That's not their players. That's not who they wanted to recruit. They're using, if let's say a previous coach got fired from poor performance, they're using those recruited players. Right. And so you got to give them a few years to cycle through. But like I said, I think we're starting to see the magic here from SUU. So let's talk polls. I'm not going to post up the most accurate poll in the nation, which is the Bluebloods poll and the FCS Fans Nation poll. But it's obviously has been a big piece of the conversation. I would say before we get in, I'm sure a rant's going to come up. But who's right now through 4 weeks? Who surprises you? And I'm not asking this for the obvious answer, but who surprises you that has made it into the top 25 this year? Besides that team that we're going to probably talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah, so besides Western Carolina, because because I know you listen to the show. I've been beating the Kerwin Bell Western Carolina drum all off season 2. I really like that team, but we'll get to them in a minute. Oh man, let me pull up my poll just to make sure. I will say, okay, I want to give an apology to this team because I was not on the bandwagon. Villanova. I was not a believer in Villanova this year. I really wasn't. I thought they were maybe the 4th, 5th best team in the CAA, maybe if everything went right. And Connor Watkins came out last weekend and they put on a clinic against Rhode Island, who I thought was better than Villanova. So I got to give them their credit. I don't know what it is. I think last year left a really bad taste for me where they just underachieved so bad. And it's just like, can they really bounce back and respond? And listen, they have proven me wrong consistently. And then I also got to give a shout out. It's in the same vein. Listen, Eastern Washington. I was a little bit excited to see what Visperas did at quarterback coming into the year. And I thought even in not his great games like last week, you look at what he put on the field. It wasn't the most explosive performance, right? He didn't have a bunch of touchdowns. He didn't have 300-400 yards, but he protected the football, made the right decisions. And I think that was the key. Last year, their quarterback play was too inconsistent and it cost them in the Big Sky repeatedly, man. And I just think last year, it was one of those things where once you get the ball rolling down the hill in negative momentum, by week 3, after that close Montana State loss, it was all hell broke loose for that team. So I was really surprised that I think even though it hasn't aged well because of HCU, but that Southeastern game was a big one. But then going on the road against UC Davis, playing a bad game in their standards and still finding a way to, man, Marlon Jones is a dog at cornerback for them, and they still found a way to win. I got to give Eastern Washington their props, man. They have proven me wrong because I was not sure how this season was going to turn out, especially with Vispers stepping in at quarterback. Is still a younger player.
Yeah, like I think it shows what the Eastern Washington program is, right? Because they can have a down year like they had last year and come back and shock everybody. My apology, because I'm going to issue it. My apologies to Delaware. I didn't believe in Delaware. I didn't believe that they could do anything after Nolan Henderson. It took me a while to, they beat Stony Brook, and the folks are like, why aren't they in your top 25? I'm like, because they beat Stony Brook, but they have absolutely come in and ran roughshod through their schedule so far. So I now have them at 12 on my poll, so close to yours, right? I have them, I think, in UND flips because I'm just not 100% sold on UND. I think UND is a gimmick offense. And I think it's going to bite them in the ass.
Oh, I don't think they win this weekend. Don't get me wrong there. Like, yeah, I'm not favoring them in that one. I think they've shown potential offensively. They do have some, I think, some underrated players defensively, but I'm with you. I need to see UND play somebody better in the FCS before I give, like, that's the hard part. You know this, because I've said it. I don't think polls should be released till week 4, week 5.
Mm-hmm. You and I are the same boat.
Listen, there's 25 teams on here. There's probably 8 that we still don't fully know what those teams are right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say too, another team I might own a apology to is Holy Cross. And here's the thing about Holy Cross. That's
an L.
I mean, I've had them in my top 25 all year. I've had them I think I've had in my top 10 all year. But I thought last season was a flash in the pan, right? But Saluka is going to win the Walter Payton Award if the stats voters pay attention, which I don't know if they do or not, but he should win the Walter Payton Award. And he has the schedule ahead of him that's going to help him pad those stats because it's a stats-based award and do it. But it's hard for me to hold stock in Patriot League teams. I still think Holy Cross is at that level that they're going to get a 5 to 8 seed. They're going to get into the quarterfinals. Then they're going to have to go out west. And then they're going to get beat by 28 points. And folks are going to dismiss them. And I don't think it's necessarily worthy of a dismissal. I just think that's the gap between the top 4 teams and then the rest.
I'll say this. If they can find a way to avoid the 2 Dakotas and Montana State in the quarterfinals, they can beat anyone else.
Yeah.
Because they competed. People forget. I know in the second half it got a little ugly, and I get it. But they played South Dakota State damn near as well as anyone else did in the playoffs. And Saluka had a ridiculous game running the football. I mean, they didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. Like, they gave South Dakota State the best game in the playoffs. Other than that, it was a cakewalk for South Dakota State for the most part.
Oh, they were just so good last year. I mean, Delaware wasn't ready.
Yeah,
Holy Cross, it was really Saluka and everybody else. And then North Dakota State, I just think South Dakota State had mind control over them last year. They entered that game knowing they were the better team. And I mean, Deshaun Gales told me that when I talked to him this offseason, he was like, man, we went in that national championship knowing we were better than them. All we had to do was go out there and play.
And I think too, the fans knew they were better than them because that atmosphere at that game was just, you went in there, folks were like, how many SDSU fans you can see? It was easily 55, 60% SDSU, easily.
Yeah,
I think
they felt it.
And North Dakota State fans, I think, knew that they weren't as good as they had been in previous years, and they didn't want to come watch their team. It was electric. Now, we talked about teams that should be in the poll. There is a certain team that should not be in a poll, and I don't understand how folks are still voting in Montana. I pulled them out of my poll last week. I got obliterated on social media about it. I had people coming at me left and right saying, hey, where's Montana? Oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, all this stuff. And then what happens? They lose. They lose to Northern Arizona. And listen, I know Flagstaff's a hard place to play. Second highest stadium in FCS. It gets loud in that stadium, right? You still lost to a team that got beat by Utah Tech. Stop voting them into the top 25. I get that they're 3-1, but they're 3-1 against a schedule that is so cupcakey. They're going to have diabetes by the end of the out of conference portion. Like, just stop voting them in. And what's pissing me off about this is the certain poll that is used by the NCAA to do things like seeding, to do things like that, has voters who don't pay attention to the damn games because their jobs won't allow them to do it for the most part. There are some folks who take part in this who are able to watch all the games. And if you look at their polls, they are very reasonable because they're watching every single game. But when you have the voice of the Grizz as one of your pollsters, do you really think he's turning around and watching every other game? No. And where you look at where Montana's ranked in this poll, somebody's voting them 13. Somebody's voting them 12. Somebody's voting them near the top 10. Why? And this is my rant. The FCS Fans Nation poll, even though some people disregard it as a poll because it is done by folks who are on YouTube, the FCS Fans Nation poll will put out the results. They will put out who submitted what ballot. And everybody I know who votes in it posts their ballot on social media for feedback, for conversation, for criticism. And if you have criticism, if you have a way to come in and defend who you think should be in the top 25, bring it. Okay. Because I've been wrong this year. I was wrong about Delaware. I just said it. I got criticism about it today. It was fine. But when you are the poll, the selected poll, and you treat it like a fucking joke, pardon my mouth, you are doing a disservice to a level of football that doesn't have the support as the levels above it. You're doing a disservice to the folks who make this job. You're doing a disservice to folks like Zach or to Sam Herder or, even to Kevin, the folks who are doing this every day, who are watching all these games, who are putting together the content, who are trying to grow it. When you put 25 in your poll just for fucking clicks, you are being irresponsible and you're being very unbecoming to a level of football that you claim to love. So please, I wish that the person in charge of that certain poll would double check polls, would go back to his people and say, is this really how you want to vote? I wish he would challenge them because he's supposed to be the benchmark of FCS polling. And instead, he's a damn joke. And that poll is a joke. That poll is starting to rival the coaches poll as the biggest joke. And no offense to the coaches, but the coaches aren't watching all the games either. All right. They're not. They're focused on their team. They have work to do. I love all the coaches in the FCS. I know you don't have time to vote. I know you're not sitting there on Sunday going back on ESPN Plus, rewatching games. No, you're prepping for the next week. Okay. So let other polls be the standard. Let Sam Herder be the standard. Let Zach be the standard. Let's combine them into one. Let's get a FCS sort of thing with it. But let's stop depending on a poll who half the voters don't give a shit about it. That's my rant, Zach. I don't know if you want to add in or not, but that's it.
I mean, the coaches poll speaks for itself. I mean, this. I mean, I have a show with an active assistant coach in FCS football, and we talk about it. And he works under a head coach who was voting in the poll, who didn't even fill it out. And that's the poll that the playoff committee uses. I mean, like it's just bad. And luckily now he's taken over that poll, so at least we know one of the ballots is cool because my guy Coach Fred's going to do his thing and he'll double check with me on stuff. But I'm with you because listen, I'm not going to name the conference or the school, but one of the SIDs I know posted his ballot because he's in the voting thing and he's an SID at an FCS school, and he had like Montana over Western Carolina and like SEMO was still really high in there. And I mean, it was just chaos. And it was like, man, because you got to think like everyone who posts their ballot, most people have Montana at 25 or not ranked. If they're 18, man, well, how high are we getting on some of these vote? Like that means Montana, like you said, is in like the 10 to 15 range on somebody's poll. And I think you get that with any statistical thing when you just have there's 56, 57 voters, I think now. Man, all it takes is a few people to rank someone like insanely high and it could just mess up the whole poll. But I agree, man. I think because listen, here's how I feel about it. And this is what I've said because you've been on my show when people are like, why do we even care about polls? No one actually cares. I guarantee, listen, I've talked to players because I interview players every day during the offseason. We talk off camera. Polls, all the American lists, all conference lists, they matter. And that's why I think more effort should go into it because those kids actually I mean, like you said, work their asses off to get that recognition. And that's why I put so much time into my top 25, my All-American list, all-conference list. Like, you just, yeah, you just got to do better, man. I think as a subdivision, because I'm with you. If we want to be, if the FCS in general wants to be respected more, man, we have to, we got to do better as a subdivision in terms of not just covering the subdivision, in terms of getting more national media, getting more conference media, attending the media days, attending games, like getting actual content out there. And then on top of that, putting in the work behind the scenes for polls, ballots, all conference, all American teams, man, because if you snub a kid at the FCS level, some teams might be making board. Like, if you're not an All-American in FCS, like, it's real tough to get on some draft boards.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, folks get missed, talent get missed because of what it is. And we don't have the same support that they have at the FBS level, even G5 level. You know what I mean? Like, we don't. Like, I'm sorry, as much as some people don't want to admit it, this channel is part of the FCS media. Whenever you have coaches and SIDs willing to interview you, willing to go on your podcast, you are part of the damn media. And it's time for you to accept that. Media isn't just having the largest radio show in the nation, which is a great thing. Right? Media just isn't print or isn't just websites. And I mean, Hero Sports is great. Bluebloods is great. All these things are great. I'm not at all saying anything against them, but it's a wide ranging sort of thing. So the folks who are putting in the time to sit down and accurately vote, the folks who are putting in the time to watch the games, to do that, they need a little bit more credit. And it boggles my mind. There's 127 teams in the FCS. You think Montana is better than 102 of them? And
did you see the argument from? Did you see the argument? And listen, no shade to him. Like, I would have this conversation with him. McLaughlin, Did you see his Montana rant? So I want to say it's in the Facebook group, and he also put it on Twitter.
Yeah, I did see that. I did see his.
Where he was saying, like, and I didn't like that he targeted. I think he was bringing up my poll because I do have 2 HBCUs ranked. You can't convince me right now, based on on-field results, that in a neutral site that Montana's beating FAMU or NCCU right now.
No. And I get tired of this argument that Montana, like Ferris State, the Ferris State game, that Ferris State would be a top 50 FCS team. They probably wouldn't, right? They are a great team, right? But there is still a gulf between a top 25 team in the FCS and a top 25 team in Division II. I think Ferris State would probably be in the 50s-ish, probably thinking FCS, and that's not a bad thing. So but we can dismiss that argument. How do you struggle against Butler? And how do you lose to NAU?
Yeah.
And still say, oh, I'm top 25 worthy. Like, they're going to beat Idaho State this week probably, and they're going to get more votes in the top 25. And then hopefully, like, some reality sets in and they get boat raced by one of the top schools in the Big Sky. But I don't even think that'd be enough to knock them out, because people aren't looking at what's going on. They're looking at just the records. And they're slot voting. And slot voting is the worst thing you can do out of anything else. And I will actively slot shame anyone I see doing it, because I personally, each week, I don't reference the poll I did the previous week. I start fresh. I look and see what they've done. That's the right way to do a poll. If you're going, well, I should put them here because they're 3-1, even though that's not the right way to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I just don't listen. I say it all the time on my channel. The transitive property does not work in college football. We just saw it this past weekend. Northern Arizona beats Montana. Montana beats Utah Tech. Utah Tech beats Northern Arizona. It happens week in and week out. The transitive property doesn't work. And I don't like these, like, hypothetical matchups that would never happen. And I didn't like that some voters are out here saying, well, if this team had to travel to Missoula and play, it's like, why do they have to travel there?
Yeah.
What happens if they had to? What if they had to come down to Tallahassee and play in Bragg, or what if they had to come down south and play in deep Louisiana? Like, I mean, I just didn't like these hypothetical comparisons, because my thing is, and I said this yesterday on my show, whatever you already believe, like your implicit biases, are just going to be confirmed by these hypothetical matchups. Because if you already think Montana is better than X team, then you're going to say that team's going to win neutral site at home on the road. And it's like, it's no actual thought process behind that. But looking at the film, regardless of, if FAMU lost in the playoffs 4 years ago, or whatever the argument was he used, this year on film, Montana's not a better team right now. And that's what you have to use. But I think it's so ingrained that, and you see this with the Ivy Leagues, and you see this with the SWAC and the MEAC and some of the, and even hell, the Patriot with Holy Cross. It's because these teams have not performed well in the playoffs. You can't rank these teams 6 years later if they get a really good team and they get a Matthew Saluka come through. Everyone was late to jump on the bandwagon. You can't rank a Western Carolina because they haven't been good in forever. We don't believe it. Like, think about everything Western Carolina had to do, and some voters are still putting them below Montana. What all they've had to do to just get the little bit of respect they have compared to what Montana's done this year and all the respect they get this year.
Exactly. That's what pisses me off. Polls aren't about pedigree. It's time to stop with that. Polls should be about results and should be about the full gamut, not just the record. Let's go on to next week's games. All right, let's see what we got. Let's go through them. Let's talk to them. There's some actually pretty good ones. We got Austin P coming off their road trip down the road again. They're going up to St. Charles, Missouri, so not too far of a trip for them to play Lindenwood at home. I don't know. I can't decide on Lindenwood. I think Lindenwood is going to be a FCS. I don't know if they'll be an FCS powerhouse, but they're going to be a great FCS team because they have the location, they have the facility, they have the means to do it. And again, I don't know. It kind of comes down to, can Austin P play a full game this time? Can they do it? I wouldn't be surprised if Lindenwood beats them. Lindenwood's not a bad team.
Yeah, I'm with. I mean, last year they outperformed my expectations. I know they played a few D2 teams thrown in there, but their offense,
Central Arkansas.
They did, and their offense was electric last year. I know they lost some of the quarterback, their top wide receiver, but I still lean Austin P in this one just because I do believe in Delelio. I do believe in what Scotty Walden is building there, even though it's on the road. I still think like you probably is Lindenwood's probably a year or two away from taking that step. Now they're going to catch somebody. Don't get me wrong, like they're going to catch somebody, but I think Austin P, despite them playing so poorly, kind of getting lucky last week against Stephen F. Austin, we've seen teams kind of build momentum off that win. I trust Delelio in this Austin P offense to kind of turn it around this week.
Yeah, Will asked, what do we make of Austin P? Looked really good until SF. That's the thing. They're hot and cold. They really are. They're so hot and cold that it's almost, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the 2022 Central Arkansas Bears, because they're doing the Jekyll and Hyde sort of move when it comes to their games. And you don't know you're not getting a complete constant performance out of them. And so, you know, that's a concerning against Lindenwood. I know Central Arkansas didn't want to schedule Lindenwood this year after what happened last year. I'm only saying that to troll Will because he's not here. But no, like, I mean, to be honest with you, like I said, Austin P could be good. They could be 7-4 this year. They just have to perform the whole game. And that's just what they're not doing right now.
They lost a lot of talent defensively at the wide receiver position due to the transfer portal. I think that's why this is the first week they've been in my top 25. And I got them at 25 because it's still kind of like a wait and see approach. If they struggle this weekend, kicking them right back out. But I
don't know if they beat Montana, Zach.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true, especially in Missoula. But I still think Austin P has potential. I think that's where I'm going to put him. I do. Yeah. I think Delelio has shown flashes of being a really, really good quarterback, and I do think, and it just is weird how Walden always just kind of reloads defensively. Man, no matter how much they lose to the transfer portal 2 years in a row, someone else steps up and emerges. So. I'm going to give Austin P the benefit of the doubt for now, but listen, they better come out here. If they struggle against Lindenwood, we're going to have another conversation.
I do want to do a formula or some sort of chart that is Austin P performance is to Scotty Walden's yelling. Because I'm pretty sure these two go together hand in hand.
He's got so much energy, man. Like it's got to be infectious in there. I mean, you've talked to, just in normal conversation, it's like, man, I'm ready to run through a brick wall now.
No, I love Scotty Walden as a coach. He's one of my favorite ones in the FCS, even though it's funny because his whole thing is like, from the Lone Star State to the Tri-Star State, we're taking home. Like, man, like, I don't know if I would go that far. Let's see what else. Let's see what we have. This is actually kind of an interesting game now because of how bad one of these teams has been performing. Tarleton State's going to Hammond to play Southeastern Louisiana. Southeastern Louisiana was a preseason top 25, was a pick to win the Southland because there's no D in that conference, so it's Southland. They were picked to do all these things. You know, they are just looking bad, and to get beat by Houston Christian of all teams at home. And I could understand maybe if you went to CVS Field at Husky Stadium in Houston and and lost there, but to lose at home
Mm.
to Houston Christian, there's got to be some concern. I don't think coach is on the hot seat yet, but there's got to be some concern in Hammond over the performance this year.
Oh man. Okay, so I don't know why they picked them over Incarnate Word to win the conference. Just personally, even with all Incarnate Word lost, because people forget Southeastern Louisiana lost a lot of talent. I mean, leading rusher, quarterback, top wide receiver, backup wide receiver transferred, if I'm not mistaken. They lost a whole bunch in the secondary, whether to graduation. Zy Alexander transfers to LSU and is starting at LSU. That's the level of talent that he is. Something's missing. I agree he's not on the hot seat because let's be honest. I mean, he's kind of taken this program to heights that no one necessarily thought. I mean, they've been a consistent like first round and done team, maybe second round and done team. But as much as they struggled offensively against Houston Christian, who I'll give them this, they have a lot of good offensive pieces down there. Listen, Braxton's done his thing recruiting.
Yep.
And there's a lot of freshmen that are balling out down there, but they're a long way away from should have been beating Southeastern Louisiana at home. I think they're going to struggle with Tarleton's offense. I think last week they might have been caught looking ahead. I mean, who gets up for Southwest Baptist or whatever the school's name was? But I think Tarleton comes in there and their explosive offense gets them the win, man. I think they're going to be too much offensively for Southeastern.
Yeah, and I will say one thing, and this is kind of weird. Like, I gave Sean Anderson crap for having Houston Christian as a preseason top 25, and I still think that was a little out there. But, you know, he might have been onto something in a way in this regard. Not that they're a top 25 team, but Braxton is turning them around. You know, it's hard to recruit into that school. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Husky Stadium.
I've seen pictures. That's all I know. There's a CVS is the other grandstand. That's enough.
Yeah. There's one grandstand and there's a CVS. You know, and it's a hard place to recruit players in. And so if Braxton can take the talent that he gets in and molds them and shapes them and gets 120% out of the 100% expected, they could be dangerous in the Southland in a couple of years. They really could.
Would it surprise you? I mean, I know because McNeese has looked terrible this year. They were supposed to take they got top 25 votes, which is just throw up worthy. Mm-hmm. But with how bad Nichols hasn't really proved anything. McNeese has taken a step backwards. Would it shock you? Would it really floor you if Houston Christian finished second, maybe third in the Southland?
I don't think they might finish third because I think it's going to go Incarnate Word, A&M Commerce.
Oh yeah,
Houston Christian. Yeah. I think that's how it's going to go 1, 2, 3. I don't think SLU finishes in the. I honestly, like, it could be someone like Northwestern State turning it around and going into, because Northwestern State has looked bad during out of conference, but they've done that every year. And then during the Southland schedule, they end up winning 4 or 5 games.
They won what 4 in a row, and then got beat like 66-7 by Incarnate Word.
Yeah. Like, so I wouldn't be shocked to see Houston Christian as the top 3 in the conference. I mean, they might be. Sorry, we need to refer to Incarnate Word by their Retro Bowl college name of San Antonio Catholic. But but no, like, I mean, Houston Christian could finish third in the conference, and I mean, what an improvement for them, because the best year they had, they went 5-7 when they had Bailey Zappi at quarterback. Yeah. And Garrett Dolan at middle linebacker, and they had that talent, and they went 5-7. And so this would be a coup, I think, if they were to do that. And it's really feasibly possible for them to do it.
Well, look at all the talent they have. You mentioned, the few names. I mean, listen, what Colby Suits has been playing out of his mind. That freshman running back, I'm blanking on his name right now. He's been just electric. I mean, 180 yards last week? Just stupid. And then on the defensive side, you got an All-American who, if he's not on your All-American list, you haven't been watching film. Rodney Dansby is a monster at linebacker. And I think I'm one of the only ones that I've put him on All-American lists like 2 consecutive years. I mean, that kid's a problem. And then I want to say it's Jax Hunt. He was just shouted out. He was named a top 8 performer by Jim Nagy for the Senior Bowl and posted an On3 today as like one of the top FCS prospects.
Yeah,
they have some talent over there.
Yeah, they've got insane. I mean, they have the talent, and it's like they're not going to win. They're not going to win this year.
No.
Maybe next year. Maybe Sean Anderson's a year ahead. I gave him shit for it, Sean.
He deserved it. Listen, he still deserved it. I mean, come on, man. There's no way. Just like the people who voted McNeese top 25 deserve it. There's no way.
First of all, there's no point. Sorry, and also too, you don't want to piss off the Cajuns that they would hear like it's McNeese, but no, no, they didn't deserve to be top 25. It's so funny what's going on with them because they've basically ramrodded the Southland Conference to do everything in Lake Charles. They want the basketball tournament there. They want everything in Lake Charles, right? But then they keep dropping these hints of, well, we're looking to go FBS. McNeese, listen, you can't sit here. Nobody wants you. Okay. You don't bring anything to Conference USA. You don't bring anything to any of the conferences. And this year, you suck out loud. So just tone it down, get your shit together, and then come back. Because your coach, Goff's about to get fired.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. I've heard it's not safe and it's treacherous waters right now.
He better not go hit LeBerge and put some money on the tables there. He better hold on to it because he might be needing it by the end of the year for sure. Let's see, we got Utah Tech going to not play Coach Prime, but they're going to Colorado to play Colorado State. Probably a cakewalk for Colorado State, to be honest.
Yeah, after what they showed 2 weeks ago, they got some talent. If it was Colorado State from a year ago when Sac State put up like 41 on them, maybe, but I don't see an upset this weekend.
No, I don't think so either. Although I do think that Colorado State punched up to Colorado versus, I don't know if they're actually better. I think they just got hyped for that game. But that's another thing. Speaking of, we just talked about this team. A&M Commerce is driving the 90 miles, or might be 100 miles. I can't remember, but it's not very far to Nacogdoches to play Stephen F. It's more than 90 miles. I just thought about it, but still, they're traveling to Nacogdoches to play Stephen F. Austin. It's part of we call it the Ryan Ivey homecoming tour because he was the AD he was at Austin P. He might have been assistant AD there, and then he was at A&M Commerce along with a certain coach. And so they're going down to play in Nacogdoches. This is an interesting game. I see Kyler Neal is here and he wants to troll. So go A&M. Which A&M, Kyler? There's 14 of them in Texas. Pick one. This is an interesting game too, because I think Commerce I said when Commerce joined Division I that they would be playoff worthy during their transition. And they might be, honestly. Here's the thing. They look good against ODU. ODU sucks. ODU is a bad FBS team. I know they played well in the CAA when the CAA was kind of down, but they suck. But I think Commerce played Davis. They played Sac State.
Sac State.
Yeah. So they've put together a tough schedule so far. And again, you have the question of SFA. Their defense can play. Is their offense going to show up?
They got a tough test this weekend because it's kind of the same question for Commerce. Their offense, not very good. Their defense, listen, Max Epps, I know DBs never get love for the Buck Buchanan. This is a kid, 20 tackles and 4 picks in 3 games. What do we do? And 2 of them came against an FBS team, and they've had a brutal schedule. This kid's balling. Jordan Polk on defense too has been a problem in terms of rushing the passer. So my thing is if Stephen F. Austin gets a turnover bug, Maher throws an interception or 2, which is probably bound to happen the way he's been playing if he goes out here and starts.
Yeah,
Commerce could make this thing interesting. Now, would I pick Commerce to win? Probably not right now, because I trust that Stephen F. Austin's defense might be able to score some, because if I'm not mistaken, the starting quarterback for Commerce has 0 touchdowns and 4 or 5 interceptions this year. Yeah, that's not going to work against Stephen F. Austin. So I'll take Stephen F. Austin. But listen, if Maher doesn't play a good game and gets a turnover bug, this thing could be way closer than I think anyone will want.
Yeah, like I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. It's going to be one of those like 20-17, 20-14. I don't see anybody breaking 30 in this game because the offenses aren't there. The defenses are gonna handle this game. It'd be interesting to see. I'm interested to see what the line is on this when the lines come out, because I bet it's going to be something ungodly like SFA like +9 or SFA -9, right? And if that's the case, take Commerce in the points, because I don't think it's going to be that big of a spread. Let's see, but we shouldn't talk about gambling on the show. There are shows for that. And also, if you have an addiction to gambling, please call the gambling hotline. They'll take care of you. Let's see. We got Eastern Kentucky traveling down to North Alabama. it's the gold. They call it gold rush or gold out or something. And they're in Florence. I saw the photos of Britt Dearman and their 80 wearing the shirts. The shirts look sick. If one of the UNA fans wants to send me one, I mean, we can talk. I'll rock it on the show. But UNA's look better this year. They're still at the bottom of the conference. They're still not there, but you could, they were great at the D2 level. They have the means to come back. It's just now they're in a heavier recruiting hotbed, a lot more competition at the D1 level. I think this is like one of those games where I think Parker McKinnell just goes off. The game that shows where folks are looking and go, wow, he has an NFL arm. Wow, he has all this. And I think it's just one of the games that he's going to go nuts on. Like he'll be 350, 400 yards sort of game, because I don't think UNA has the defense to stop the NFL caliber arm that Parker McKinnell has. Yeah,
because you kind of look at their schedule this year. They really haven't faced a quarterback of his caliber. All the teams they faced, I mean, listen, Carter Peavy has been, that's a whole nother conversation with my frustration with Mercer, but you know what I mean. He's been handcuffed despite all the talent that they have at wide receiver. It just still aggravates me. UT Martin, listen, Sam Franklin ran for like 900 yards, it feels like, so they're not a pass first team. Chattanooga's quarterback, he's come along late, but he wasn't playing well early. I'm with you. I will say though, if you're Brent Dearman, you got to feel good about where this team is year one. Nobody, like if I would have told you right now that they'd be sitting where they are, you would have never you would have never thought they played Mercer that close. You would have never picked them above Chattanooga. They made the game against UT Martin close. Now Tennessee Tech's terrible, but that's still a big win for a North Alabama who last year was terrible against everybody. I mean, listen, you got to give Brent Dearman credit. This team is a team that I don't know how you feel in 2 years they can compete for the UAC.
Hey, listen, I mean, Tennessee Tech's terrible, but they did beat Kennesaw State transitioning team. Shout out Coach Dwayne Alexander. I actually know his sister. So shout out Coach. It's a nice win. You just, Tennessee Tech is always up against it when it comes to just getting anybody to go to Cookeville and go to school there. No, somebody told me I was too hard on UNA and Dearman earlier this year. And you know what? I probably was. He kind of reminds me of what he's doing. The same thing that Fitzgerald's doing at SUU. I think you give them 2 years. Are they going to be in the playoffs? No. Might they be over 500? Yes. They'll be one of those. They're going to be one of those teams that isn't going to make the playoffs, but they're going to spoil you making the playoffs. They're going to come in and they're going to take a 7-4 team, get a dub against them, and knock them out off the bubble. And you know what? We need more teams like that in the FCS.
I mean, I'm looking, kind of ahead at their schedule, just kind of scrolling through. I mean, they get Florida State the last week, which is a horrible time for a money game, but that's a whole other conversation. But I think they can get Utah Tech. I wouldn't surprise me for them to win that game. And if they pull an upset over an Austin P, an Abilene Christian who's been inconsistent, or man, if you pull up upset this weekend, then we're talking a whole nother potential. But yeah, exactly. if you pull out 1 to 2 more wins this year, man, that's an A++ season. I mean, that's better than anyone could have expected. So I think Dearman for me it isn't looking toward the playoff. It isn't looking for a conference championship. It's, can we build enough momentum where we can take that recruiting up another notch? Because they did really well in the transfer portal this year. Man, they already had a 3-star. They got a 3-star wide receiver already committed out of Mobile, which is insane. No, there's never been a 3-star going to North Alabama in August. And if he can keep building the momentum, man, I'm with you. I think next year they're going to kind of be like Southern Utah last year, where they catch some people. But then, man, year 3, you're looking at that conference championship, like, man, it's in reach.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's see, who else do we have? We talked about. Oh, Abilene Christian goes to Denton to play the North Texas Mean Green or Eagles or whatever the hell you want to call them. I mean, I don't think there's any much to say here. I think Abilene Christian will probably compete with them for a while, but I think North Texas is just too deep.
And ACU's too inconsistent.
Yeah. So he said, even though UNT's, shout out Randall, he said, even though UNT's having a down year, ACU will just collect the paycheck.
Yeah.
They need one week to fix their issues. That's absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it says face orange frowning, because I don't know why I didn't put that in there. And then let's this is to me the game of the week in the conference, because it interests me. Central Arkansas going to Cedar City, going to play SUU. I wish Will Seiler was making the trip out there. because the excuse to go to Vegas, and then you could drive up and go to Cedar City. This one kind of interests me here because I don't think SUU will win, but I don't think they're going to get ran out of their stadium either. I think SUU is smart enough to say, "Hey, we've got to stop the run." They're going to put their focus on the run. They're going to put their focus on Powell and Hale, and I think they're smart enough to do that. And then, I think at that point, then you have to force UCA to throw on you.
Yeah,
and that makes it a different game. That makes it a completely different game if they can do that.
I know that, Western Illinois last week was an easy game, but they played Arizona State, BYU, and at UC Davis. And gave Arizona State and UC Davis all that they could handle. I mean, down to the wire. So they've played a tough schedule. It's kind of a good matchup for them because they're only up there. I want to say they're allowing less than 70 yards per game on the ground, like 2 point something per carry. They've been dominating against the rush. And I think it goes to those linebackers. What is it? Cohen at one, Cullimore at one, who was a freshman All-American last year. And then they got Aubrey Nellums, who represented them at Media Day. They've been balling out. I think their problem is they've struggled to establish the run. And as good as Miller is at quarterback against Central Arkansas, we saw North Dakota State was able to kind of counteract what Shandaric Powell was doing with their own run game, controlling the clock, wearing that defense out. Southern Utah, man, their offense has been explosive through the air, but they haven't been able to really grind it out. And if they can't run the ball this weekend, man, I really question their ability to win this game, despite how good we knew what Isaiah Wooden was. That was a borderline All-American last year. Yeah. Zach Mitchell has come out of nowhere, and he has been unguardable at times. And so I think it's going to be a good test for Central Arkansas secondary. But if Southern Utah doesn't run for 100, 150 yards, I don't think they're able to pull this one out.
Yeah, against Western Illinois, they ran 35 times for 96 yards.
Not going to win that game this weekend.
You're not going to win that game if you are at 2.7 yards per carry. That's just not going to fly. I mean, Miller, went 24 for 35, 2 picks, 242 yards. I mean, not a bad game. But he was at least averaging 10 yards in completion. He was, that's first down movement. That's what you want to see out of your passing game. But if you can't move the ball on the ground, you become a one-dimensional offense, and UCA is going to eat that up. What does Kyler say?
Oh, yeah. Listen, I will say this. I don't know because I'm big on offensive line play. Southern Utah with 2 FBS games has only allowed 1 sack all season.
Yep.
That's elite with 2 FBS games in a UC Davis team that has some talent in the front 7 and are just pretty aggressive defensively. I mean, you got to give them credit, man. I'm very, very surprised at how well their offensive lines play, which is weird because apparently something's missing in the run game. Their offensive line looks to be there. Is it the scheme? Is it they don't have that guy at running back this year? If I'm Southern Utah, I'm trying to get Isaiah Wooden in space.
Yeah.
Jet sweeps, put him at running back. I don't care. Pull a Debo Samuel. Get the ball in your biggest playmaker's hands. We know what he is as a return specialist. We know what he is as a wide receiver. He's already a smaller guy. You use him on short routes. He also has the ability to go deep. But just get him the football. Jet sweep. Hand it off to him. I don't care. Get the ball in your playmaker's hands to try to spark something on the ground.
Hey, I'm just saying, Coach Fitzgerald watches this show. Coach Zach knows what he's talking about.
Hey, shout out to Coach Fitzgerald, man. I got to meet him this year at Media Day. That's my guy.
Yeah, I need to talk to you after the show because I'm trying to get Jamie Williams because Jamie knew him in college, and so we're talking about going out to Cedar City next year for a game. You should go with us if we go.
Oh yeah, I'm down for that. I'm still trying to find a way to get out to Idaho for a game. I've been talking to some Idaho people, and man, like I got to figure out a way, but it's a long flight, as you know, from over here all the way to Idaho.
Yeah, that's. I mean, it's a long flight for me. It's just kidding. Zach is the absolute goats. By far the best in the game.
Shout out to Kyler, man. I appreciate him. Hey, he's probably bigging us up because I think we've written about Eastern Washington more in the past like 2 or 3 weeks than I think we did all last year.
And poor Kyler sitting in a hotel room somewhere right now because the work's just like miserable. And the reason why I know that is because if he was home right now with Kelsey, he wouldn't be watching this. I know how he rolls. Well, man, that's it. That's everything for the week. We went over an hour. This is great. Zach, anytime you want to come on here, man, I know this isn't one of your recording nights. Feel free to come on. I'd love to have you. But before we, go through the ad and stuff, man, tell everybody where they can find you if they aren't following you. And most importantly, if you're not following him yet on social media, if you're not going to his website, if you're not watching his channel on YouTube, you need to like and subscribe and get there, because Zach is one of the absolute best in the FCS level. So you will learn so much from him. I learned so much especially about HBCUs every week watching the show. So, but Zach, go, take it away.
Man, I appreciate you for that. And man, you can find us on YouTube, the Bluebloods, all podcast streaming platforms, multiple shows a week. Also the website, the bluebloodscfb.com, social media at _Bluebloods, and myself is just at Zach McKinnell. Find us there, man. Daily FCS content. And man, I definitely appreciate you having me, man. Big fan of what you guys are doing over here. So anytime I can hop on one of the shows, man, definitely appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate having you. I'm sure most of you guys have been subscribing to the channel, but if you came on here because you saw Zach was here, FCS Fans Nation, man, like the channel. I think we're at like 15,000, 16,000 on the Facebook page, doing great there. Channel's doing great here, but it's not just, you get to see my sweet face every week. You get to see the big show on Sunday with Matt, Jamie, and Kyler, Neal, or myself, because I am the Temu version of Kyler whenever he's out. But also too, there's the Jackrabbit Illustrated, the B Team, the Jay and Keith show. There's so much great content on that channel. So make sure, if you're not liking and subscribing, like and subscribe. Follow Zach on Twitter. Follow Brendan. Exactly, Brendan. Brendan says, I'm just here for Zach. You know what, Brendan? I'm just here for Zach too. I put together the show solely to have Zach on. There's not going to be another episode after this week. I just wanted Zach here. but like I said, like and subscribe. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy the FCS content that you see out there. Zach is going live Thursday at 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, 4:30.
Yeah, going early because with him having Coach Fred on there, man, you got to work the time. But go watch that. Make that be your Thursday afternoon. I'm getting off work and I want to watch something good. Go watch that stream. Anyway, guys, have a great week. Enjoy the next week of FCS football. A lot of great games this weekend. We will talk to each other next week. Have a good one.